Welcome, student. Very good morning to all of you. And let us continue with our chapter Ecosystem and the Energy Flow. In our yesterday's lecture, we learned about the primary succession and the secondary succession with the help of one of the important or the fundamental example, that is the hydrarch or hydrosphere or the xerosphere. Okay, in this two between hydrosphere and the xerosphere, magic is the middle or the intermediate point where they proceed themselves itself. Okay, now in our today's lecture we are going to start with the last topic of our ecological succession and also the chapter ecosystem and the energy flow. Due to the pandemic, maximum points are deleted from this chapter, and although they are deleted, but you have to study or go through that chapter and at least read the chapter thoroughly. Okay, now let us continue with our today's session, that is the next to the primary and the secondary succession. Okay, in primary succession on rock, these are usually crustose lichen. Okay, in last lecture I already told you that the lichen play very important role in the formation of soil. Formation of soil is also called as pedogenesis. Pedo means soil, genesis means formation. Formation of soil is mostly takes place with the help of lichen. So lichen play the important role in ecological succession. Here the crustose lichens, which are mostly grown or seen on the barren rock, here these lichens secrete some acid, and due to this chemical reaction, barren rock turns into the soil, and here the formation of soil takes place. In primary succession and the secondary succession, secondary succession is faster than that of primary succession, as we already learned in our last lecture. But here the primary succession takes place very long period or time, or year to year, or year to several year or million year to become the secondary succession, or this procedure. Here in primary succession on rock, these are usually crustose lichen. Here crustose lichen is important in the key in the point of view of your MCQ or competitive exam, which are able to secrete acid. Okay, as I told you, I think these are the carbonic acid and the oxalic acid. In our 11th standard, you already learned about it. It secretes the acid to dissolve rock. What is the function of that acid? They dissolve the barren rock, and what they form? They form the soil. Okay, pedogenesis, helping in weathering of rock and soil formation takes place. This paved the way for bryophytes, mosses that are able to take hold in small amount of soil. Okay, in our last lecture or in our last slide, we saw or we learned this diagram. Here the barren rock are there, then lichens which are grown on that particular barren rock, they secrete acid and soil formation takes place. When the soil formation takes place, then the small annual plants and the other small plant grasses are grown on that particular soil. Okay, now they pave the way for bryophytes, mosses that are able to take hold in small amount of soil. ज्या झाडांना कमीत कमी प्रमाणात माती लागते, सॉइल लागते, की जी सॉइल त्यांना त्यांच्या जर्मिनेशन साठी प्लस त्यांच्या ग्रोथ साठी इम्पॉर्टंट आहे, अशा काइंडचे प्लांट जे आहेत ते प्लांट त्या ठिकाणी प्रायमरी सक्सेशन मध्ये आपल्याला पाहायला मिळतात. ओके, दे आर विथ टाइम succeed by herbaceous plant, and after several more stages, ultimately a stable climax forest community is formed. Again, go to that particular diagram. Here, barren rock, then lichen, small annual plants, and the lichens are there. Then they go through the next stage, that is the intermediate stage, and lastly they reach to the climax community. Here the climax community, shade tolerant trees are there, which are very important in case of they are settled or they just the last or the ultimate source or stage of or community of on the earth. Okay, now they are with time succeed by herbaceous plant, and after several more stages, ultimately a stable climax forest community is formed. The climax community remain stable as well as the environmental remains unchanged. One of the very important line, that is the climax community, the last ultimate stage. Here they remain stable as long as, for example, forest आहे तसंच आहे, climax community last stage. Okay, as the environment remains unchanged, जोपर्यंत एन्व्हायरमेंट मध्ये काही चेंज होत नाही तोपर्यंत त्या ठिकाणी क्लायमेट कम्युनिटी जी आहे, क्लायमॅक्स कम्युनिटी ॲज इट इज राहते. लास्ट एक दोन स्लाइड मध्ये आपण लास्ट लेक्चर मध्ये आपण पाहिलं होतं, ज्या वेळेस नॅचरली किंवा मॅनमेड इंटरफेअर केला जातो क्लायमॅक्स एन्व्हायरमेंट सोबत, त्यावेळेस फॉर एक्झाम्पल फायर असेल, डिफॉरेस्टेशन, त्यावेळेस ही क्लायमॅक्स कम्युनिटी काय होती, ब्रेक होती आणि पुन्हा एकदा मागच्या स्टेजला जाऊन पुन्हा त्यांना नवीन त्यांची जी ग्रोथ आहे किंवा डेव्हलपमेंट किंवा प्रोसिजर जी ती पाहायला मिळते. ओके, पण पुन्हा एकदा सर्व रिव्हिजन करू, त्यावेळेस मी पुन्हा एकदा आठवण करून देईन. दिस द क्लायमॅक्स कम्युनिटी रिमेन स्टेबल as long as the environment remain unchanged. Now, here there are some examples. First, in primary succession of aquatic habitat, where they are present in water, aquatic habitat, the pioneers are the small phytoplankton. Okay, the small phytoplankton which are grown mostly in the aquatic habitat. They are placed with time by rooted submerged plant. First, they are the small phytoplankton. Then they are replaced with, by time, rooted submerged plant. Means they have root and they submerge. They are present or below the or above and below the soil water surface. For example, hydrilla. We are already familiar with hydrilla. Then rooted floating angiosperm. Rooted, they have root. Floating, they are floated. Angiosperm. Okay, angiosperm, gymnosperm. These are the angiosperm. For example, lotus. As we know, lotus, the roots are there, leaves are there, cuticle substance is there so that the leaves does not get spoiled. Okay. Then they are followed by free floating plants. Why free floating? Means they are not rooted, means the roots are not submerged in the soil. They are free floating plant, for example, pistia. Then the reed swamp, example typha, marsh meadow, example cyperus, then scrubs, example alnus, and finally the trees, for example curious. The climax again would be a forest, and the last stage or last part is the forest. Here they are started with the aquatic habitat. In our last lecture, I told you or we learned the hydrosphere. Hydrosphere means wetland or waterland. Waterland to the mesic condition. Here, these are the aquatic habitat. From aquatic small phytoplankton to tree, these are the route or the succession or the procedure. Here they get adapted from one plant or the one stage to the next stage, and from water to the mesic condition or the intermediate condition. Here the climax is formed with the help of forest or with the example of forest. With passage of time, the water body is converted into land. आणि ह्याचाच परिणाम काय पाहायला मिळतो आपल्याला की खूप ह्या टाइमनुसार जी वॉटर बॉडी होती जी आपण स्टार्टिंगला पाहिलं प्रायमरी सक्सेशन aquatic habitat, it become the converted into the land की जी स्टार्टिंगला पायनियर्स होते स्मॉल फायटोप्लॅंक्टॉन्सला, पण as the environmental changes goes on and the succession goes on, they get adapted to the number of stages, and finally they reach to the climax community and would form the forest. And with the help of this, with the passage of time, the water body is converted into finally into the land, that is the mesic condition. Here another example from the hydrosphere to the mesic condition. Okay, this is all about the primary succession to the converted into the land. Here, with the help of this diagram, here the phytoplankton stage, then the second one is the submerged plant stage, third one is the submerged and free floating plant stage, then the reed swamp stage, marshy meadow stage, then the scrap stage, and the last one is the climax forest. Means the water body get converted by time to time into the climax forest. With the help of this, number of plants are grown and are shown in particular stages. This is all about the primary succession. Okay, now in secondary succession, the species that invade depend on the condition of the soil. I repeat, the species that invade depend on the condition of the soil, availability of water, the environment, as also the seeds or other propagules present. Since soil is already there, in secondary succession soil is already there, but in primary succession soil formation takes place. Okay, since soil is already there, then the rate of succession is much faster, and hence climax is also reached more quickly. See here, in primary succession it takes place more time as compared to secondary succession. Why? Because in secondary succession already soil is there, and as we know that soil is the medium or very important constituent for the plant for their normal growing. So the climax community is reached more quickly as compared to the primary succession. Is that clear? Okay, it is important to understand that succession, and it is very important to understand the succession between the primary and the secondary. What is the main difference between the primary succession and the secondary succession? One of the important or the main basic difference is the availability of the soil. The availability of soil is more, or already soil is available in secondary succession, but in case of primary succession the soil formation takes place with the help of crustacea on the barren rock. They secrete the acid. With the help of this acid, soil formation, that is the pedogenesis, takes place. When the pedogenesis takes place, then with the help of this soil, small plants, mosses, shrub, they grow on that soil, and ultimately from pioneer state to intermediate state, from intermediate state to the climate community, and this climate community is the ultimate or the last stage of that primary succession, but it takes place more year to year, million year to reach that particular climate community. But in case of secondary community, here the soil is already there, so the climate community reach quickly as compared to primary succession. Here the rate of climate community reach or the faster than that of the primary succession. I hope you understood. It is important to understand this succession, particularly primary succession is a very slow process. Underline this point. This is very slow process, maybe requiring thousands of years for the climax to be reached. Okay, here for the primary succession, thousands of years for the climax to be reached. They require thousands of years. Primary succession require thousands of years to reach their climax community. Why? The question will be asked why they require thousands of years, and you should answer this question with the help of this soil formation. Soil formation is one of the important point in this answer, because in primary succession, there is absence of soil. On barren rock, lichens grow and then soil formation takes place. So, they require more time as compared to secondary succession. Okay. Another important fact to understand that all the succession were taking place in water or on land proceed to the similar climax community. Another one of the important, yes, I already told you in our last lecture, that is when there is a xerosphere or the hydrosphere, both proceed or succeed to the one intermediate state, that is the mesic stage. Here from the hydrosphere means very watery or the wetland to the basic state, or xeric condition, from the xerophytic condition, dry condition to the mesic state. That is the mesic stage or community is the intermediate community or the climax community where hydrosphere and the xerosphere both reaches. Okay, this is all about the primary succession and the secondary succession, that is the ecological succession. Let us review to this point from starting, that is ecological succession. Okay, in this chapter, first of all, ह्या चॅप्टर मधला आपला फक्त हा एकच पॉइंट जो आहे इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन, तोच फक्त ह्या वर्षी ड्यू टू द पॅन्डेमिक कोविड-19 फक्त ह्याच वर्षासाठी इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन एवढ्याच एका पॉइंटवर टॉपिकवर क्वेश्चन्स विचारले जाणार आहे. तरी देखील तुम्ही बाकीचा जो पॉइंट आहे 14.1, 2, 3, 4 अँड 6 हे तुम्हाला घरी रीड करायचे, ते वाचून घ्यायचे. पण इम्पॉर्टंट पॉइंट जो आहे तो आपला असणार आहे इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन, की ज्याच्यावर ह्या वर्षी क्वेश्चन विचारले जातील. आणि हा चॅप्टर मे बी 3 मार्क्स साठी कंपल्सरी क्वेश्चन अँड 4 मार्क्स विथ ऑप्शन असणार आहे. त्याच्यामुळे व्यवस्थित स्टडी करायचं आहे. आणि 100% प्रायमरी सक्सेशन अँड सेकंडरी सक्सेशन ह्याच्यावर क्वेश्चन हा असणारच आहे. ओके, this ecological succession comes under the chapter number 14, that is the ecosystem and the energy flow. Here let us start with the introduction. Just a quick review. An ecosystem is a self-regulatory and self-sustaining structural and the functional unit of the nature, that is the biosphere. It contains both biotic as well as the abiotic component. Biotic components interact with each other as they are living organisms. Okay, also with the surrounding environment. The scientist in 1935 coined the term ecosystem. This is important in case of MCQ. Ecosystem vary greatly in size, from small pond to large ocean or small farmland to the village. Entire biosphere can be considered as one global ecosystem made up of many local ecosystems. Since the Earth ecosystem is too big and too complex to be studied, it is divisible into two basic categories, that is the terrestrial and aquatic. Forest, grassland, deserts are the type of terrestrial ecosystem, whereas the lake, wetland, river and estuaries are the type of the aquatic ecosystem. The ecosystem can be classified as natural ecosystem and the artificial ecosystem. Natural ecosystem do not require any human input. In other words, they are self-sustainable. Whereas, in case of artificial ecosystem, for example, a farmland, a fish tank, or even a large pond used for rearing fish, require constant input in terms of energy and material. Then what about the ecological succession? First, let us clear with the succession. It is a special pattern which occur over the time. Time is a crucial factor in this succession. The ecosystem is occupied by the pioneer stage. As time passes, species diversity increase given way to more complex organisms. Eventually, it leads to the climax community. Here, climax community is important. Underline. Climax community do not evolve further. Last ultimate stage of the ecology or community or the succession is the climax community. The gradual and the predictable change in the species composition of a given area is called as ecological succession. The changes is sequential and environmentally regulated. Okay. Now, in next step, during succession, some species colonize an area and their population become more numerous, whereas population of other species decline and even disappear. The entire sequence of community that successively change in the given area constitute with is called as the cell. Alternately, it is an entire gradient of organism from pioneer stage, that is the barren rock lichen, to the climax stage, that is the shade tolerance plant. The individual transitional community are termed as the seral community. Okay, in the successive seral stages, there is a change in the diversity of the species of organism, increase in the number of species and organism, as well as an increase in the total biomass. Okay, in our last lecture, we learned about the primary succession and the secondary succession. The present day community in the world have become to be because of the succession that has occurred over millions of years since life start on earth. Succession is hence a process that starts where no living organism were present before, like on a newly formed volcanic island. This is called as primary succession, where on earth there is nothing. Okay. Other example of area where primary succession occur are newly cooled lava, rocks, and newly created ponds or reservoir. The establishment of a new biotic community is generally very slow. Before a biotic community of diverse organisms can become established, there must be a soil. Here the important word is soil. If there is no soil, no plant growth takes place. So the barren rock play important role with the help of crystals like it. In the presence of chemical reaction, they produce or they form the soil. Depending mostly on the climate, it takes natural process several hundred to several thousand years to produce fertile soil on a barren rock. Now, what about the secondary succession? In secondary succession, it begins in area where natural biotic communities have been destroyed, such as in abundant farmland, burned or cut forest, land that have been floated, etc., since some soil or sediment is present. Succession is faster, or the secondary succession is faster than that of the primary succession. Description of the ecological succession usually focus on changes in vegetation. However, these vegetational changes in turn affect food and shelter for various types of animals. Thus, the succession proceeds, the numbers and the types of animal and decomposers can also change. At any time during primary or secondary succession, natural or human induced disturbances, that fire and the deforestation, etc., can convert a particular cell stage of the succession to an earlier or previous preceding stage. Okay, as I told you. Also, such disturbance create a new condition that encourage some species and discourage or eliminate other species. Succession. Here the Hadras and the Xerox succession is important. Both the Hadras and Xerox succession lead to the medium water condition, that is the mesic, neither too dry or nor too wet. Okay, so in this it is very important in Hadras and Xerox. Hadras means the watery or very wet land, and Xerox means the here the dry area, very dry area. That is the succession of plant is called as the xerosem. Here, the species that invade a bare area is called as the pioneer species, and this is the one of the very important diagrammatic representation of xeric succession of plant from primary succession to the mesic community, or primary succession to the mesic community. And in our today's lecture, we learn in primary succession on rock, these are usually crystals like it, which are able to secrete acid and dissolve rock, helping in weathering of rock and soil formation takes place. This paved the way for the bryophyte, mosses, and that are able to take hold in the small amount of soil. They are with thin succeeding by the herbaceous plant, and after several more stages, ultimately a stable climax forest community is formed. The climax community remains stable as long as the environment remains unchanged. And this is the example from primary succession, that is from aquatic habitat, that they converted into the water body is get converted into the land. Okay, and with the help of this number of plants, rooted submerged, rooted floating, free floating, reed swamp, marsh meadows, scrub, trees, and ultimately they form the forest. And here it is the diagrammatic representation: phytoplankton stage, submerged plant stage, okay, submerged and free floating plant stage, reed swamp stage, meadow stage, scrub stage, and the last one is the climax stage, that is the forest formation takes place, climax community. This is all about the from primary succession to the mesic or climax. In secondary succession, the species that it may depend on the condition of the soil, availability of water, the environment, as well as also the seeds or the other propagules present, since soil is already there in secondary succession. The rate of succession is much faster in secondary succession, and hence the climax community is also reached very quickly. It is important to understand that succession, particularly primary succession, is a very slow process, maybe requiring thousands of years for the climax to be reached. Another important fact to understand that all the succession were taking place in the water or the land proceed to a similar climax, that is the mesic. Okay, this is all about the ecological succession. That is the 14.5 topic from the chapter number 14, ecosystem and the energy flow. I hope you all understood the ecological succession with the help of numerous examples, and the primary succession and the secondary succession. I hope you are preparing your notes with the help of this PPT, or also you can refer your textbook, which is very easy and in very easy language they given with the help of numerous diagram. So prepare your own notes, make your own notes and study hard for your examination. Here we end with this chapter, ecosystem and energy flow. In our next lecture, we will start with another chapter from the paper second. Till then, stay home, do study, be happy. Thank you.